Between 2018 and 2022, I lost 50 kilos. I went from 125 kilos to 75. But I made lots and lots of mistakes along the way where eventually I got to the point where I would just be stuck in a constant cycle of binging and restricting, which lasted 3 years. I've finally broken free and I feel confident in my skin, free around food, and figured out the exact method to lose weight without gaining it back, which in the last year has helped 30 others get fit, get healthy, and become the best version of themselves without the pain and struggle that I went through. So in this video, I want to share with you the step-by-step strategy that I shared with so many other people that got them results without impeding their lifestyle so much. The first step in this whole process is that this needs to become a priority in your life. If you're watching this video, you're probably overweight. And if you're overweight and you're not happy about it and you don't feel confident in your skin, then the most important and the most leveraged task, and what I mean by leveraged is you putting in a small amount of effort to get a massive amount of return on your life, is investing in your health and investing in your physique and investing in your fitness. Because there were so many things that I couldn't do when I was overweight that I can do now. I can go to a clothes shop and literally wear whatever clothes that I want because they actually fit me and I can have the choice. And when I go and try them on in the changing rooms, I don't look in the mirror frustrated with the way that I look. I actually am proud of it. I can go and do adventurous things where I can climb and do mountains. I can fly across the world and not feel uncomfortable and get like massive amounts of issues and have to recover within the next 2 days. I can run along the beach and watch the sunrise because I have the energy to do so. This is what is in store for you if you make this a priority and you actually say to yourself, oh shit, I actually want to change. Because if you don't make it a priority, then it's not going to happen. And you may as well click off this video now. But if you do and you're willing to change, then this video is for you, because with this video, you're going to be able to take everything that you learn and apply it to your life straight away and become the best version of yourself. And how great is it that you have the opportunity to do that? You have the opportunity right now to become the best version of yourself. I'm talking from a place of empathy because I know exactly where you're at right now. The first time that I went to the gym, I went with my uni friends and I walked on the treadmill on incline because I was too scared to go to the weights area. That's how insecure I was. That's how insecure I was. I was exactly where you are. My friends literally laughed at me on the way back when I was walking from the gym to my halls. And so if I can do it, if I can lose 50 kilos, if I can transform my life. I used to wake up at 4 p.m. in my first year of university. I had a rotten banana on my desk for a term and it got so rotten that it created a mark that is still there on that desk today. I used to take drugs, I used to do alcohol, I used to do everything, and now I wake up at 5:30 every single day. I go to the gym twice a day. I'm the most confident that I've ever been. I'm mentally sharp. I have so much energy. I can travel the world. I can do what the hell I want because I took control of my health. And you can do that too. Now, 90% of you will probably click off now, but there are going to be some of you that are listening to this right now that are going to actually be like, yes, I want to do this. And that is exactly who I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to you because if you are engaging with this message right now, you have it within you, and I'm so excited for you. Let's get into it. The first thing that we need to understand is what is successful weight loss. Most people think that successful weight loss is losing weight, but I want to challenge that idea and say that losing weight is not enough. We need to lose weight and keep it off, because if you just lose weight and gain it back, then you're exactly in the same position that you're in prior, and there's no benefit to that. You just go through the pain of losing weight and then you go through the pain of gaining it back, which is even worse because sometimes you think to yourself, oh shit, I did all that hard work and now I've wasted it. And so we need to find a way for you to lose weight and gain it back. And by the way, 95% of people that go on diet end up losing weight and then gaining it back. If there's one thing that you can take away from this video, diets are not the answer, okay? Diets are not gonna help you. And I went on a short-term diet and I gained back the weight and it didn't work. People go on keto, people go on Weight Watchers, people go on carnivore, people go on like all these other random shitty diets. And yes, it might work in the short run. It might be super satisfying because you lose loads of weight and you feel great, but it leads to binging, it leads to an unhealthy relationship with food, it leads to deprivation, and that's not what we want. We need to find a way for you to lose weight and gain it back, and I'm going to explain the solution in this video. I want to explain to you an analogy that illustrates this point massively. The reason why diets have been pushed massively in society is because bodybuilders came along and they were like, let's go on these cuts and let's go on bulks. Cuts, bulks, cuts, bulks. And what this is basically a period of losing weight, so you reveal the muscle which you've built in the bulking period. And this is the philosophy that they live by. And if you go to any personal trainer who has this kind of bodybuilding background, they'll say dieting phase and they'll use these words. But if you're super overweight, do you really need to go on a diet? Because you're taking a philosophy from a bodybuilder and applying it to your life, but that's the exact same thing as learning to drive a car on a racetrack in a supercar, learning from Lewis Hamilton. No, when you go to learn to drive, you go to a driving instructor and you learn to drive your car with roundabouts, and you learn to park, and you learn to drive to school, and you learn to park into a bay, and you learn to stop at a traffic light. You learn to drive a car in normal life. And the problem with diets is that they aren't normal life. Diets create this illusion that you need to stop life in order to lose weight and you need to put everything on hold. But that's the exact same thing as learning to drive a car in this kind of magic situation. But then what happens when you actually re-enter real life? What are you going to do? You're not prepared for it, right? And so what we really need to do is learn to drive the car around this normal town, okay? We need to learn to drive around and go to the traffic lights. And what that really is a lifestyle change. It's changing your lifestyle so that you are able to exercise good habits around eating, around movement, and around your lifestyle regularly. And this just becomes who you are. And to put it really simply, all this is breaking down any habits that don't serve you. So right now you might wake up in the morning and you check your phone, you go to your desk, you don't really move that much. Maybe you eat relatively healthily, and we'll talk about that later on in the video. But clearly the habits that you have right now have got you to the point where you are right now. And so there needs to be some sort of behavior change there. And all that is breaking down those habits that you have that don't serve you and building good ones. And that's all it is. It's very simple. It's not about going on a diet. It's not about doing this silly keto. It's not about anything like that. It's about breaking down bad habits, building good habits. Breaking down bad habits, building good habits. Breaking down bad habits, building good habits. Hopefully you've got the point that I've said it 3 times now. But I want you to recondition your beliefs that in order to lose weight, you need to diet. Because if you realize that actually it's about this lifestyle change, it's going to make it so much easier for you to go on this journey, because you realize that one off plan is not going to ruin your progress, or going out to eat is not going to ruin your progress, or going on holiday is not going to ruin your progress. Because remember, this is a lifestyle change. It's not a short-term diet, because short-term diets are done by bodybuilders. And by the way, right, bodybuilders, although they do see success and they build these great bodies, they do so in such an aggressive way that they end up binging. They end up having massive mental health issues, a lot of them. They end up feeling quite isolated from society because they basically sacrifice normal life to step on stage all tanned up and looking great. But we are not them. We need our own approach. We need to learn to drive with traffic lights and roundabouts and all these great things. And so what that means is breaking down the habits that don't serve you and building the good habits that do serve you. And this is exactly what is outlined in the transformation blueprint. And by the way, if you just want a step-by-step plan, how to implement this lifestyle change into your life to transform it, literally transform it, then just click on the link in the description. It's just gonna save you loads of time and save you loads of pain and struggle of figuring out exactly what to do. But anyway, let's continue. So in the transformation blueprint, all it is about learning to live life with intention. So what we said was we wanna break down the bad habits and we wanna build up the good habits. And to put that simply is like, you want to lose weight, right? You want to look better, you want to have more confidence, you want to feel all these great benefits of getting in shape and getting healthy, having more energy, whatever. And now we know that in order to do that, we need to break down bad habits and build good habits. And I'm going to explain exactly what these habits look like in a bit more depth. But if we know that we want to build these good habits and want to break down these bad habits, then all it comes down to is living with intention. What I mean by that is actually doing what you said that you're going to do. And so right now you're in a state of, maybe you think that you want to exercise, maybe that you want to eat healthy, maybe you want to do all these things, but you're not doing it, not being consistent. Then how do we get to a point where you are consistent? How do we get to a point where you become intentional? How do we get to a point where you say to yourself, I am doing what I said I was going to do? Because once you got to that point where you're doing what you said you were going to do, then all you got to do is then at the end is just be patient, right? Then the results will come because you've broken down the bad habits and you've built the good habits. And it's about making that transition as smooth and as easy as possible. And so there are 3 pillars to the transformation blueprint, which I want to explain to you. Pillar number 1 is the intentional eating protocol. The reason why it's the first pillar is because nutrition is, especially when you're overweight, is pretty much everything, right? 80% of the calories that you come from is literally just by you living your daily life. And so exercise is never going to be a massive dent into the calories, although it's a big part of living a healthy life. And so I think it's still important, but I put nutrition first because if you can get in control of your diet, then everything else feels a little bit easier. So it's about intentional eating. The second pillar is intentional movement, and I'm going to cover exactly these 3 pillars in the next part of the video. And then it's intentional lifestyle. Got this SESH framework which breaks down lifestyle into 4 different parts and means that with all these pillars, you cover all the bases to break down the bad habits and build the good habits to take you from where you are now, which is maybe overweight, not looking the way that you want, to becoming that person that you want to be, which is fit, healthy, lean, energetic, and basically living life to the fullest. And doing it in the smoothest way possible, meaning that you get to that point and you never go back. So the first pillar that I mentioned is about intentional eating. So the intentional eating protocol, the first step is to start monitoring your nutrition. Not counting calories, not tracking calories, not going on a stupid diet, monitoring nutrition, becoming aware. And I'm going to explain why with a story from one of my clients. I was on a coaching call with my client. He's a lawyer, and I was asking him, are you tracking your calories? And he was like, yeah, I am. And then whilst we're on the call, he gets this coffee cup and he pulls it up, and it's like one of these takeaway coffee cups. Imagine a Starbucks cup. It wasn't exactly Starbucks, but something similar. So he gets this coffee cup, pulls it out, and he goes to drink it. And I say to him, so have you, like, what coffee is that? And he goes, it's a latte. And I was like, oh, have you tracked that into your calorie tracking app? Thinking that he would say yes, because we just literally had this conversation. And he goes, oh no, it's just a coffee, right? Like, can't be that much. And then what I do is I say to him, why don't you go onto Starbucks website, check the nutritional information of a latte? And he goes, it's 200 or something. And I was like, yeah, it's 200. And he was like, that's crazy. I wouldn't have thought that. The reason why it's important to monitor nutrition is to get an understanding of the food that you're consuming. And from there, we can start to break down the bad habits because we have the awareness, and build the good habits, which is what everything comes down to. Because what we're trying to do here is change our behaviors to the point where we become that person that we want to be. And that's what's going to allow it to be sustainable. And the first step is to become aware. And you can only be aware if you monitor your nutrition. Now, this can be done in a variety of ways. For most people, monitoring on a food tracking app is going to be the best thing because they've got a massive database of all the foods that you have. Something like MyFitnessPal is super easy to use. You can literally add in the foods, like you can search things. And it doesn't mean that you have to be super diligent about every single thing. Try and be as diligent as possible. But if you go for a meal out and you're trying to calculate the calories, you don't need to think about it so much and try to get it exactly correct. Just put a little bit of an estimation and you're halfway there. And with that awareness, we can then start to make changes. But without the awareness, we don't have any idea of how we're going to do that. And a good example was yesterday, I was on a coaching call with one of my clients and I was like, what does a typical day of eating look like to you? And I've been trying to get her to monitor her nutrition for a while, but she's not really buying into the whole process. She was like, oh yeah, like I have cereal in the morning and then I have peanuts and some pretzels for a snack, and then for lunch I have some pasta or some other stuff, and then for dinner I have something I cook. And that was basically the routine. And what she said was later on in the day, she has these peanuts and I was like, oh, like, do you know how many calories are in peanut? And she was like, no, I don't. And what I said to her was that each gram of fat has 9 calories and each gram of protein has 4 calories. And so literally by having something like peanuts and not being aware of how many you're eating, you could be massively overeating the calories that you should be. And so monitoring your nutrition in an unobsessive way just gives you the awareness to be able to make changes. And I swear by it. I genuinely swear by it. And it's the first step that I get anyone to do, is just to start looking at their calorie intake. And once we have that awareness, we can then do what I'm going to share next. So step 2 is literally about building your ideal diet. And this has got to come from a place of gratitude versus a place of insecurity. So often when we go on a diet, something emotional happens. Maybe we step on the scale and the number's a little bit higher than we expected, or we go to put our jeans on and they're a bit tighter than we expected, or we go clothes shopping and nothing fits. And as a result of these emotional things, we end up saying, oh, I need to lose weight. And because we're in this emotional state, we are coming from a place of insecurity. And what we really want to do is actually take a step back, become a little bit more objective, and think to ourselves, no, obviously this thing has happened. It doesn't make me feel good. Great. I have the opportunity to be able to work on this. This insecurity is a signal. And then you can come from a place of gratitude, and because you're coming from a place of gratitude, you can build a diet that nourishes you. And when you come from a place of insecurity and you make these emotional changes to a diet, that's when we get into issues of restricting calories too much, or doing things that are too drastic, doing lots of cardio. And that drasticness ends up causing us to fall off the bandwagon. And the idea is that we put too much of a importance on the result of losing weight. And what I mean by that is we say to ourselves, like, I need to lose weight, or I need to get in shape, or if I don't get in shape, I won't feel this, I won't feel happy. But what we need to do is take a step back and really become happy within ourselves and within our body, and become grateful of our body and come from a place of gratitude. And when we do that, we think to ourselves, okay, what is the best food that I can eat that will nourish my body? And it's likely that those foods aren't exactly what the foods that we're eating right now, but they're probably not the exact same foods that you would eat if you came from a place of insecurity. And so if we say to ourselves, okay, we want to nourish our body, and we create this diet that nourishes our body, it might be for breakfast, we have something which is high in protein that keeps us full, which is nutrient dense. And then for lunch, it's exactly the same. And for dinner, it's exactly the same. But then when we go for meals out, when we go for all these other occasions, it doesn't mean that we have to restrict and deprive ourselves from them. It just means that we go to these events and we think to ourselves, how can we best nourish our bodies in these events? And it means that we just don't overeat, we enjoy mindfully, we enjoy the company, we get the benefits of being able to enjoy this amazing food with the people that we are with. Also means that we can practice imperfection. And this is something that I struggled with a lot. So when I was early on in my dieting days, I would restrict really hard, and that would come from a place of insecurity. And so this is why I stressed this point to everyone about coming from a place of gratitude and nourishing our body. But I would restrict calories really hard. I wouldn't really think about the actual nutrients that I was getting from the food. And as a result of that, my hair would start falling out, I would feel low energy, and then I would think I needed to be on this perfect diet in order to lose weight. And if I wasn't on this perfect diet, I'd feel guilty. And then any moment that I had to go off plan, maybe I was on holiday, the floodgates would open and I would just binge back up. And it would be this constant, really frustrating cycle. Whereas if we come from a place of nourishing our body and eating mindfully and creating a plan that actually serves us and comes from a place of gratitude, it means that we can embrace imperfection, and it means that we never feel like we're off track, because even if we eat a little bit more in an evening, it's not something that is going to ruin our progress, because we don't have this attachment and this intense obsessiveness with being perfect and having calories so low, and we're almost letting go of the need to lose weight. But as a result of that, we end up making way more progress in the long run. And so at this point, we know where we're at because we have monitored our nutrition, we are aware of the starting place, we have an understanding of what we're eating currently, and we have an idea of the diet that we want to be eating. And hopefully we're making those changes to get closer and closer to this diet. And we're doing that more consistently. But when we do have these kind of behavior change, and like we can make that transition as fast as we want, by the way. Like I have clients that make the transition a little bit slower and we work on it a little bit by bit, or we can make the change a little bit quicker depending on how open you are to change. And I think that's exactly what it comes down to. There's different personality types. Some people are really open to change, some people aren't. And at this point, there are still going to be times where we may slip up. And this is where we have to become aware of our habits that are causing us to slip up. And this is where we want to break down those bad habits. And so every single habit has a cue, a craving, a response, and a reward. And when we break down these habits into a cue, craving, response, and reward, this framework comes from the book Atomic Habits. We can understand how we can make it more likely for us to build these good habits and less likely for us to have the bad habit. And so a good example to explain this idea of the cue, craving, response, reward framework is every single day at 4 p.m. when I was working from home and I was losing weight, I would go and want to have a snack. And at some point, this actually was a snack that I didn't ideally want to have as part of the Nourish meal plan that I'd set for myself. So what would happen is at 4 p.m. I would get a little bit bored. So this would be the cue. And the craving would be to go into the kitchen and have something. And I think this might stem from my childhood. It might be a little bit of habitual cue as well, where every time when I came from home, from school, I would then have a snack. And the response would be to go to the kitchen and have a snack, and then the reward would be the dopamine hit from the food that I was eating. And what would happen was I would have maybe something like an Oreo or something that didn't best serve what I wanted, which was to nourish my body. And so what I did was, instead of cutting out that completely and trying to break down that bad habit, I just replaced the food that I was eating with something a little bit better. There's so many examples to this. So my dad, for example, he's lost 28 kilos and he has the habit of wanting something savory after he has breakfast. And so he used to have a massive bowl of gel roll. And so gel roll is basically fried crisps. And he'll have this big bowl and it's very calorific, like 10 grams is 50 calories. And I know that because I've been monitoring my nutrition for a while, which is why I think it's so important to do. And so he would have this big bowl, and obviously when he started monitoring his nutrition, he became aware, oh my God, this big bowl is so many calories, maybe I should reduce it. And so he intervened, and what he did was he just reduced the amount that he was eating to 20 grams. And so every morning he still has 20 grams, so he hasn't restricted himself massively, he hasn't deprived himself, he hasn't said, I'm not going to eat these foods yet. No foods is off limits for him. He just creates a system where he's able to enjoy the foods that he really loves as part of his Nourish meal plan. And as a result of that, his meal plan is sustainable. It makes him feel good. It makes him have energy. It allows him to lose weight, but it doesn't feel restrictive. And so when you go through this process of monitoring nutrition, understanding what nourishes your body, and then becoming aware of your habits, you end up being able to intervene and make those changes and build the habits that are going to allow you to become the person that you want to be. And by the way, if you want a step-by-step strategy to making this happen, then just check the link below. It's amazing value to completely transform your life and literally level up in the next 6 months, which could take you a good few years without having that step-by-step guidance. The next step in this is intentional movement. So I think the reason why people fail at their weight loss goals is because they don't have the right strategy. And so in the gym, there are two types of people. There are those that exercise and there are those that train. Exercising is basically just going in, getting a bit of a sweat on, maybe, I don't know, going onto the treadmill or the bike or the cross trainer. And you'll see people in the UK, especially around this time when they're preparing for summer, and they'll be like, oh yeah, let's get in shape. The people that exercise never actually end up making progress with their weight loss goals. But then there's the people that train. And the people that train go in with a structured training program. They know exactly what they're doing and they go in to get progressively stronger. And the people that go into exercise always want to look like the people that train, but they don't know how. And so what we can deduce from this is that we just need to learn how to train and we'll get the progress that we want. And training is basically like brushing your teeth, right? When you brush your teeth, do you ever say to yourself, I'm gonna brush my teeth for 3 hours today, and that means I'm done for the month, and I'm gonna get in shape? No. So when people go to exercise, what they'll do is, it's April now, you go to the gym and you jump onto the treadmill. When you jump onto the treadmill, you have people that go on there for 2 hours and they'll be like, yeah, I went to the gym, and they'll do that for a week, thinking that's gonna allow them to prepare their body for summer. But the people that train, they show up every single day, or maybe 2 to 3 times per week for an hour. It's the exact same philosophy as brushing your teeth for 2 minutes every single day, twice a day, because it's the consistent efforts over time that compound, that lead to the gains. And it's not these large sweeping efforts that actually make a difference. And so you've got to get into your head that brushing teeth and training is exactly the same. You just have to show up 3 times a week for 45 minutes is all you need. And you just have to set that as a non-negotiable. And that's, by the way, whether you want to lose weight or you want to gain weight or you want to stay the same weight. Because remember, we're trying to change our lifestyle. And training is now going to be part of your lifestyle. And that's going to allow you to become that person that you want to be, that's fit, lean, healthy, energized, and feeling great. And the second part of intentional movement is cardio and steps. And really, a lot of people will say go do 10K steps, or in bodybuilding they say do 20 minutes of fasted cardio in the morning, or go on the Stairmaster for 45 minutes, and they'll give these random blanket numbers about cardio and steps. And I think it's just fucking bullshit, all right? I just think it's wrong, because if someone's doing 1,000 steps per day and you go and tell them to do 10,000 steps, that person is not going to be able to do it. They're going to get tired, they're going to feel like this is shit, and they're going to fall off the bandwagon. All right? They're going to get disheartened. And so a better approach is actually going to be explained by understanding Call of Duty. So in Call of Duty, you have 2 types of games. You have the campaign and you have zombies. When Call of Duty was first released, they had the campaign. And they only had the campaign, they didn't have zombies. And so what happened in the campaign would people would do the game and they would finish the campaign, they would go through the story, and they would stop playing the game. There would be less of a buzz about the game, maybe less word of mouth, because people would just play the campaign, finish it, and then put the game away into the drawer, and it would get forgotten about. But then what happened was Call of Duty was like, you know what, let's release something called zombies. What zombies is that? You go into the game and it starts on level 1, and then 4 zombies come out, and you have to kill them all. Then you go to level 2, and more zombies come out, and then you keep going up in levels, and more zombies come out. And then you can buy guns, you can get better, you can do different things, you can play different games, and you can go on different maps and you can do different things. The whole point here is that it's a never-ending game and you can actually play with other people. And so the point here is that you should treat your cardio and your steps like zombies. And then what happened when they released zombies is that people started playing more, people started playing together, and the game got way more sales because people would talk about zombies a lot more because it was addictive. People wanted to get better. People wanted to keep leveling up. People wanted to play on different maps. People wanted to beat their friends at the highest level. And so you want to treat your cardio and your steps like zombies and not the campaign. Because if you treat it like the campaign, you'll get to 10K steps and you'll stop. Or you'll hit a certain level and you'll stop. Whereas if you treat it like the zombies, you will continue to get better. And remember, we're making this a lifestyle change. And so when I first started trying to lose weight, I hit the target of doing 10K steps. But then I started doing 12K. Then I started doing 14K. Then I started running. Then I started doing martial arts. And now I do like random sprints and I do basically a bunch of random stuff. But it took me a while to get there, but I'm just exploring my body more. I'm pushing my body more. I'm dropping my resting heart rate. I'm getting fitter as I go along. And I think this is the best way to view intentional movement because it makes it way more addictive. It brings fitness into your lifestyle. And I live in Bali at the moment, and there's a run club. And there's a few guys there that regularly go to the run club, and like fitness, and they're all in shape, by the way, they're all in really good shape. And fitness is so much part of their life. And that means that they go for runs, they wake up, they go for runs together, they go and do cool things where they swim, one guy's training for triathlon and he's always doing like random stuff, or Ironman or something. And this is the mentality that you've got to go into when you think about cardio and steps, is that it's never going to end. It's an infinite game. I'm just going to keep getting better. I'm going to keep leveling up. I'm going to be able to do more and more with my body, because you might start off with 2K steps, But the next year you might be able to do 10K steps. But then the next year after that, you might be hiking to Everest. And the thing is with this kind of thing as well, the more that you do it, the more that you love it, the more that you get invested in it, the gains are exponential. Because the more that you put into it, the more that you love the process, you start exploring your body more, you start doing cycling, you just follow your natural interests. And that is the beauty of going on this journey. And so saying to someone, oh, like 10K steps is enough, I think it's a bit disheartening, because there is so much more to that. And 10K steps is not enough, it's just the start. And so the next part is the intentional lifestyle protocol. And this covers everything else, where we have your sleep, environment, stress management, and your hydration. And once you have all those 4 things covered, as well as the movement and the eating in an intentional way, you're going to be a completely changed personality. Fitness is going to be part of your life. You're going to be super healthy. You're going to be walking on the beach and people are going to be looking at you like, fucking hell, look at that beach bum. And so the next 4 parts, I'm just going to be breaking down each of those so that you know exactly what you need to do in order to transform your life. So the first one is sleep. And this comes together as the SESH framework. So the first one is sleep. The other day I got 100% sleep performance. I'll actually show you on my Whoop. 100%. And honestly, I got 100% sleep performance, and it was the best sleep that I've ever got in my life. The best sleep I've ever got in my life. And I woke up and I just felt on top of the world the whole day. I was less anxious, I had less stress, I had less cravings, I was more focused, I had more energy. And so if there's one thing that you can take away from this video that is going to allow you to level up your life in all parts, is to get the best sleep that you can. There's been studies that have been done on people that sleep more. So there's a study done where they took a group of people, they gave one group 10 hours sleep, another group 4 hours sleep, and then they tested their appetite for the period of the study. And they found that the people that had 4 hours sleep literally had more cravings for carbs, had a bigger appetite, ended up eating more, had less leptin, which is the fullness hormone, had more ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. And so on a physiological level, like your body is going to be functioning way better if you prioritize your sleep. And so it's so important that you do that. The next one is stress. So we need to understand that stress is just an emotional response. There's a great quote from Alex Hormozi, which is, stress doesn't mean that anything's wrong, stress just means you're alive. And it's such a beautiful quote, because when we were hunter-gatherers, we'd be going around and we would perhaps be endangered at some point by a lion. And what would happen is, when we saw this lion, we would get a stress response. And this stress response would mean that our heart rate goes up, our appetite goes down, and a bunch of other things. And as a result of that, we would be able to respond accordingly. So when we think about stress, we need to view it less negatively and just understanding it as a signal in our body. And so if you get given a piece of work by your boss and it makes you feel stressed, then you have to understand that stress response is just a physiological thing, and we can take ourselves out of it and put ourselves in the parasympathetic state, which is just the calm state, very easily, okay? And that's gonna allow us to basically manage our life better, because if we're less stressed, we can attack things with a bit more of a sense of peaceful focus. And the way that we can become aware of that is a very simple technique, and it's called meditation, and you've probably heard of it before. But getting into a consistent routine of meditation is gonna be so powerful in becoming aware of these emotions that we're having, like stress, and then intervening before the stress actually gets to a point where we're reacting with food and we're actually responding calmly and actually confronting whatever's making us feel stressed. And so when we meditate, what happens is you might follow your breath, right? I use an app called Waking Up by Sam Harris. It's really good, but oh my God, my nose is so itchy. But what you can do is you'll sit down, close your eyes, follow your breath, and what will happen is you'll get distracted by thoughts, by feelings, by sensations. And as a result of those distractions, you'll end up taking your focus away from your breath. But at some point you'll notice. And the practice of becoming aware of those things and bringing yourself back to the focus of your breath is exactly the practice that is going to allow you to respond to stress and not react to stress with food and in basically harming ways. And building this lifestyle of actually being calm, being focused, being positive, which is all about what we're trying to do here from going from that person that we are now to where we want to be. The third one is the environment. So we have your social environment, your digital environment, and your physical environment. And the reason why I'm breaking it down into those three areas is because it really allows us to dive deep into the three areas around our life that really impact our behavior. And if we can design these three things in a way that helps us achieve the goals that we want and the person that we want to be, then it's going to just make it easier for ourselves. And I'll give you an example. 2 months ago, I've come to Bali, and everyone here is in really good shape, or the people that I hang around with here, I go to this gym called Nirvana, and 95% of people are in really good shape. And as a result of that, I'm way more motivated to be on track with my diet and nutrition and my training, because I'm just around these really fit people. And so if you can design your environment in a way that supports the person that you want to be in your goals, then you're going to be in a really good position. So the social environment is the people around you. Are the people around you healthy? Do they care about their health? One of my clients, he was talking to me yesterday, and he was like, oh yeah, me and my girlfriend are working on this journey together, and we want to go and get our steps in. And it's so great that they've cultivated and built this into their relationship, because now it's going to make it so much easier for them to be healthy and get their walks in, get their steps in. The second is your digital environment. And so something that I used to do was I would just look at my phone and I would look at food videos, and I would be so focused about food. But by designing my digital environment in that way, it just meant that I was constantly reminded of food, and it probably made my cravings higher. It definitely accentuated my food focus. And instead, a better approach is to really be intentional about the content that you're consuming, because that is the substrate for your thought. People say that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend time with, but I think you're the average of the 5 people that you consume content from. And so design and be intentional about who you're consuming content from, because if the content that you're consuming is from people that are not close to the person that you want to be, then that's probably going to have an influence on you. And even on a level of looking at other people's stories and looking at just scrolling mindlessly and wasting time, all of that stuff is important. And again, it's something that I go into in a step-by-step way in the course below. So just click on the link, check it out. I explain everything there. But by designing all these 3 things and being really intentional about it, you're going to really put yourself in a position to change your behaviors in the way and the direction that you want. And then the next one is your physical environment. And this is quite funny. So at home, we have this cashew tub. So my dad likes to roast cashews, right? He likes to roast cashews in the air fryer, put salt and pepper, some chili, whatever on it, and then he puts it in this big Tupperware. And they're quite Moorish and they're quite tempting. And so when I was working from home, sometimes I'd go into the kitchen and I'd be tempted to have them. And when that would happen, right, when I would do that, I would end up eating maybe too many sometimes. But what I did was I put my big peanut butter tub, so I love peanut butter, I put pepper nut peanut butter on top of the cashews. And so it made it way less likely, because of the added friction, for me to go and have the cashew tub, because every time that I had to have the cashews, I would pause before having them. And so if you can design your environment, your physical environment, in a way that supports your goals, you're going to be way more likely to achieve it. And that means that put unhealthy food away, or don't even buy it, or put healthy food available to you, or keeping your gym clothes out and leaving them by the door. There's so many little hacks that you can do to really make it way more likely for you to perform the habits that you want to perform, which is all we're trying to do. We're going to build good habits, break down bad habits, to bring you closer to becoming that person that you want to be, which is having energy, looking great, feeling confident. And then finally, we have hydration. And I've been doing 75 hard recently, and I've been having to drink 4 liters every single day. And basically, anytime that I get hungry, I just drink the water, and it just keeps me full. But I just have way more energy, especially living in a hot country. I just have way more energy, I feel better. And if you can just get into the habit of basically having a bottle, keeping it near you at all times. I have 2. But if you can do that, then you're just going to feel better. And if you think about our bodies, they're 80% water, or 70%, or something like that. And so just getting into the consistent habit of drinking water first thing in the morning, more throughout the day, later on in the day, you're going to be in a really good position to become that person that you want to be, build those good habits, break down those bad habits, stay full, stop overeating, and becoming that person that you want to be. And so thank you very much for watching. That is the end of the step-by-step guide on how you can completely transform your life. If you enjoyed, then check out this video here, because YouTube thinks that it will be beneficial for you. So make sure to check that out. But until next time, remember, become the person that you want to be. Peace.